This is the reason Joe Rogan's name keeps coming up in every conversation about the Sean Combs case right now. Referencing comedian Kurt Metzger, Rogan went on the record questioning whether Diddy was ever truly going to face what most people assumed was coming. And the more you look at how this trial unfolded, the harder that question gets to brush aside. What Rogan actually said deserves a closer look, because the setup matters more than most people realize. On his podcast, Rogan brought up a call that comedian Kurt Metzger had made well before the trial even began. And the argument Metzger laid out was blunt and specific. Maureen Comey, the daughter of former FBI Director James Comey, was serving as one of the prosecutors on the case, and Metzger pointed straight back to the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, where he believed too many high-profile names were never dragged into the open. His read was that with Comey involved again, the outcome was going to rhyme with what happened before. Rogan pushed back hard at first, telling Metzger that the charges Diddy faced were serious and walking wasn't a realistic outcome. Metzger reportedly held firm anyway, right there in the green room of the Mothership Comedy Club. And according to Rogan, that call aged like a fine wine. Now, Diddy didn't walk free in any literal sense. He is currently behind bars. But what Rogan was pointing at had nothing to do with whether prison happened. The real target of his frustration was everything that didn't happen. The names that didn't surface, the promises the public was handed versus what the trial actually put on the table. Because those two things ended up looking nothing like each other. The question Rogan kept circling back to is the same one that's kept millions of people glued to this story. Before the trial got underway, reporting consistently pointed to video footage from Diddy's private parties. Footage that allegedly captured some very well-known people doing what Rogan described on air as horrendous things. Anticipation built around the idea that the case would reach far beyond Sean Combs himself, that powerful names would get dragged into the light, and that this was going to be one of those trials that reshapes how people think about the entertainment industry. None of that materialized inside the courtroom. No footage was released publicly, no recognizable names were pulled into the formal proceedings, and the blackmail angle that had been making the rounds in public discussion never became a charge at all. What Rogan flagged, and what a lot of people watching found impossible to ignore, was the sheer distance between those early expectations and what the jury actually heard. That gap doesn't prove anything on its own, but it's wide enough that people are still hunting for an explanation that holds up. Part of that explanation lives in the legal strategy Diddy's team deployed, and it turned out to be more ambitious than most observers had anticipated. His attorneys went after the charges by arguing that the private recordings and the encounters built around them were shielded by the First Amendment, and in their brief, they described what prosecutors called freak-offs as highly choreographed sexual performances, involving costumes, role play, and staged lighting, produced so that Diddy and the participants could revisit the recordings privately at a later time. No commercial transaction ever changed hands, the defense argued, and the films never left the hands of the people who made them. The Mann Act typically targets people who move others across state lines for commercial sexual purposes. And here's the thing the defense kept hammering. There was no commercial purpose to point to. According to Diddy's legal team, he actually lost money in these arrangements, paying the people involved rather than profiting from them, which meant the statute the prosecution was leaning on didn't fit the facts as the defense presented them. Rogan laid this out on the podcast in plain terms, explaining that the defense wasn't saying the behavior was admirable, only that constitutionally protected personal content can't be prosecuted the same way commercial exploitation can. The prosecution pushed back on all of it, but the defense's ability to constrain the legal frame of the case played a direct role in shaping how narrow the trial ultimately became. Rogan drew a clear line between what people expected to see in that courtroom and what prosecutors actually chose to pursue. The blackmail threads, the alleged footage of recognizable faces, the wider network of compromised, powerful figures. None of those threads made it into the formal proceedings. Instead, the trial centered heavily on allegations brought forward by Cassie Ventura, Diddy's former girlfriend, and on the specific incidents prosecutors built their case about. Among the most direct testimony came from a witness named Sherry Hayes, an entertainer who worked private events and who testified to attending gatherings involving Cassie Ventura and Sean Combs across a stretch of time running from September 2012 to approximately March 2015, attending somewhere between 8 and 12 of those events. A woman called him ahead of one particular booking, described it as a birthday gathering her husband had arranged entertainment for, and Hayes arrived expecting something routine. But the room he walked into was dimly lit by candlelight, with every piece of furniture draped in sheets. Instructions followed. $2,000 in cash changed hands before anything began, and when Sean Combs eventually entered the room and made his presence and expectations unmistakably clear, Hayes testified that he became so uncomfortable he couldn't continue. The next time anyone connected to those events came up in his life, Hayes told the jury, he was sitting across a table from federal investigators. His account was detailed, specific, and credible, but it was also contained. One man's experience across a few years, not the sweeping industry-wide exposure that so many people had been waiting for. While the courtroom stayed narrowly focused, the world outside it was running in the opposite direction. Singer and content creator Tanasia gave an interview describing her experience at one of Diddy's after-parties during a period when breaking into the music industry was everything she was chasing, and what she walked into didn't match the opportunity she thought she'd found. Excitement and nerves hit her at the door, but the atmosphere shifted quickly into something that put her instincts on edge. And when Diddy approached her personally, asked how she liked his house, and told her to go inside, she described feeling a dark energy radiating from him, the kind that comes from someone who knows exactly how much power they're holding. She chose not to follow where that implied invitation was pointing, and the interview went on to pull in millions of views once it started circulating online. Former celebrity bodyguard Big Homie CC sat down with Piers Morgan and made the case that what the public knows represents a small fraction of what's actually out there, comparing the alleged network around Diddy to the one that surrounded Jeffrey Epstein. Big Homie also claimed he experienced pneumonia-like symptoms himself, a detail that caught attention because Diddy's former partner Kim Porter died from reported pneumonia, though no public evidence connects those situations, and Big Homie offered nothing concrete to bridge them. The interview lit up online discussion anyway, with a lot of people reading it as confirmation that the surface has barely been scratched. On the civil side, at least one lawsuit has alleged that Diddy committed crimes against a minor, with the filing describing an incident at a party where the plaintiff, a child at the time, was allegedly guided into a back room, given alcohol, and subjected to sexual battery. Diddy has denied every part of it. His legal team has rejected the claims as fabricated, and they've signaled their willingness to pursue legal action against people they believe are inventing accusations. Here is where things get genuinely jarring for a lot of people. After years of public allegations, a federal investigation, witness testimony delivered in open court, and a trial that had the attention of the entire country, Sean Combs is currently scheduled to walk out of FCI Fort Dix in New Jersey on February 23, 2028, 50 months into a sentence that stunned people the moment the number landed. Followers of the case who had invested years into watching every development assumed the weight of the evidence, the scope of the public allegations, and the sheer volume of witness accounts would add up to something far longer. What that calculation missed is that sentences attached to convictions on specific charges, not to the full body of rumors, accusations, and public suspicion that swirls around a person before a verdict ever comes in. That distinction is real, and it matters legally, but it doesn't resolve the frustration Rogan and others have been voicing, because the question at the center of all of it was never really about the length of the sentence. It was about whether the videos that people were told existed would ever reach a screen, whether the high-profile names allegedly tied to those recordings would ever be named in open court, and whether the full picture would get exposed the way early coverage suggested it would. February 23, 2028 is now on the calendar, and none of that other material ever made it into the trial. So when people ask whether Joe Rogan just exposed Diddy's plan to escape prison, the honest answer is that the framing isn't quite right, but the underlying frustration behind it is. Diddy was convicted. A release date is set. The legal process ran its course. But the trial that millions of people geared up for, the one that was supposed to shake the industry, pull powerful names into the open, and put decades of alleged behavior on full display, never showed up. Kurt Metzger called it from a comedy club green room before the proceedings even started. Rogan credited him on the podcast. And the people who watched the verdict land walked away carrying the same question that started this whole conversation, wondering what happened to everything else they were promised.